Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I promised this video a long time ago. I'm getting there. It's taken me quite some time to get this content up, get it recorded, get it edited, get it uploaded and everything else. So I'm slowly chipping through it, but it's coming. Anyway, leg day. I've always had issues with leg day, lower back issues, and then formed into knee issues. For any of you that have watched my other video being the how to train legs with bulging discs, I think it was called. Basically, I sort of run through different things that I've tried over time to get your body to still be able to train legs in a way that you're not hurting your lower back, so to speak. So what we're doing with this today is since I recorded that last video, I think it's been about 2 years now, I sort of gave up on the whole idea for about 12 months, and then I sort of worked my way back, climbing up the ladder, and decided that no, this is something that I'm still going to try and solve myself, and yeah, just did a heap more research and tried to work out what the issues are, and sort of tried to address different ideas and whatnot. So this is basically what I'm doing now, step by step, to train legs. Nothing about this workout is heavy. It is intense, but it's definitely not heavy. I haven't sort of gone that far with it yet. I'm just trying to make sure that I get all the joints, all the ligaments and everything all lined up, ready to go. And from what I've found so far, it's making a world of difference. My lower back's nowhere near as sore, just on a day-to-day basis. When I'm doing squats or any form of leg exercise, it's just a lot nicer on my back. It doesn't feel anywhere near as strained, and it feels like it's hitting the right areas. The other day on the leg extension, I noticed that my knees were finally sitting even. So that's a big key to what's changed. Anyway, I'll get stuck into it. This one here, basically one leg up here. This is to engage hip flexors and a bit of core stability for whatnot. So basically just bringing your leg out and around and just sort of drawing circles. Sort of stabilizing your bench, stabilizing yourself on the bench as best you can, trying to get your leg as far out as possible, and then sort of just drawing sort of a rectangle or a circle until you feel your hip flexor starting to give out, and then just bring it around the other way. And pretty much just keep doing that for as long as you can, and as you can see, mine's starting to give out already, but give it a few reps and a few sets of this, and you'll really start to see that it's starting to pick up in strength. And then we basically just switch over, go the other way, do the same thing with this leg. This leg for me is quite a lot stronger. Should I say this hip flexor for me is quite a lot stronger. It still clicks and grinds over the joint quite a bit, but we're getting there on that one. It's all progress. And the key to this exercise is not falling off the bench. That's more often than not the hardest part. So, yeah, pretty much I do probably 3 sets of them just to get everything warmed up, engaged. And what I've been noticing is once I've been doing them to start with, it makes such a huge difference with what I move into next. And yeah, just like I said, finding it making a massive difference, because I skipped them the other day and I jumped straight into doing some squats. And just, yeah, massive difference. I sort of backtracked and came back to this and then went back to doing the squats, and world of difference. So definitely don't skip this step. If you're having the lower back issues and you feel like everything's sort of moving around when you're doing squats and whatnot, or even leg press, if you've got a good mind muscle connection, you can sort of work out whether your hips are moving out of alignment and whatnot. This is definitely something good to try. I mean, it takes 5 minutes and you should notice a pretty big difference. Okay, so this one here, you can pretty much do before or after the previous exercise, the hip flexors. What this does is it just opens up your spine and brings all the fluid, as far as I know, brings all the fluid back into the discs and helps realign all those discs back into where they're supposed to be. I feel a huge hot rush going down through my lower back when I do this, especially if I've been sitting down all day or even standing all day, because everything's not spot on with my back alignment. It makes a massive difference. So this is one thing that I found, even before I go to work, I'll try and come in here. I don't have one of these at home, so I'll try and come in here, even if it's for 10 minutes, and just do this and a few other little things before I go out and do a 12, 14 hour day sort of thing, where I know I'm going to be sitting down a lot, because it just makes such a huge difference. So, that wasn't me, I swear. Oh, hang on, actually, no, we're doing this wrong. Let's line this up. That's why I had the camera in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to try and base yourself probably about 1 metre away from the wall, wherever you sort of feel comfortable. And then just, with your feet still on the ground, as best you can, you just arch your back over the ball. Depending on how flexible you are, you can go down with your hands on the ground. Yeah, this could be interesting. First time I've tried this. Nope. Okay, so that's not going to work for me. But yeah, if you're flexible enough, you could go down and put your hands flat on the ground and sort of stretch all your chest and your rib cage up as well. Sorry. It's yeah, you basically just hang here for a while and just tighten up through your glutes and your hamstrings, and then sort of just release. And you want to have the ball pretty much in the middle of your lower back, just at the base of your spine, sitting across your hips, where your spine joins your hips, and just sort of hang there and go backwards and forwards a little bit. This is why I like to push onto the wall, because it sort of makes it a bit easier to keep it a bit more stable. Just moving backwards and forwards through there, and you just feel all your joints, and especially all through your hip flexors, just opening right up and just getting a good stretch in through there. And to me, I think personally, this is makes such a big difference before a leg workout, because you're freeing up the joints and you're allowing them to open up and be ready to get worked. That's the correct term. I think my brain's struggling to think while all the blood's running to my head right now. It should be the other way around when you think about it. Yeah, I usually just sort of hang here for a minute or two, and like I said, just let everything stretch right out and tighten up through your lower back and through your hamstrings, through your glutes for a little bit. Tighten, just strain through those hip flexors, and then just release everything and just let it all sort of fall into place and fall into where it needs to be. And just sit here for a little bit and let the blood rush back to everywhere else. But, you know, get up and fall straight over. So yeah, I usually do that one before or after the hip flexor workout. I find it doesn't really matter too much. If you do it after, your hip flexors are a bit more engaged. If you do it before, they're not as engaged, and you can sort of open the area up a bit better. But you know, it's up to you. Try it either way and see what happens. All right, let's jump into some the first exercise of some legs. So what we're going to try and do with this one here is especially similar sort of squat position is what you would normally do. Bar across the top of the traps. We're going to put one foot back behind us. We're going to try and push down into the ground with whichever foot is forward. And try not to lift your back foot off the ground or lift the heel of your front foot off the ground. Takes a bit of a few goes to get the right position. And what you want to basically do is try and look in the mirror as much as possible to try and keep an eye on how your hips are looking. You sort of get a bit of a gauge on whether or not they're tilting one way or another. If they're tilting one way more than the other, you want to try and correct that on the way down. And then when you push up, coming out of the squat position, you really just want to tighten up through your hamstrings and your glutes as much as possible. You're still pushing up with your quad and taking in a lot of the pressure with your quads as well, but it's all about the stability in the hips on this one and trying to keep everything as level as possible and stretching out and keeping everything engaged. And once you do that, everything starts to tighten up and hold the position a lot stronger. So I'm starting to go too far forward now. I'm starting to roll up onto the ball of my foot, which is what you want to try and correct. You want to try and be aware of that you're not doing that. You want to come down, you want to push your arch, well, not your arch, into the ground, so to speak. You want to try and keep what they call an active foot, so you're clenching through the arch of your foot. You're not pushing it down, but you're pushing the heel of your foot into the ground, trying to push the earth down as you're coming up. Really starting to burn now through the quads, through the hamstrings and the glutes. There we go, we're getting a bit of a shake happening now. Oh, and that's just murdering my everything. Hip flexors, glutes, quads, hamstrings. This is where I really like to start with this, because in my opinion, you have to really follow this sequence. And once you follow this sequence, they all sort of work in with each other. This is just something that I've been playing around with. I've picked up bits and pieces from different people explaining different exercises, why one does this and why one does that. And I've just sort of pieced it together and sort of tried to work out what works best in what combinations. And so far, this is what seems to be working best for me. I don't know whether you can see it in the camera, but this one, my right hip flexor is really tight. So as I'm going down, my hips are twisting out to the left. So what I'm trying to do is strengthen up, tighten up my right glute, my right arse cheek. As I come down into it, I do that as much as possible, my hip doesn't tend to flex out to the side as much. And then once I start to do that, my left one starts to tighten up as well. Try and change the stance up a little bit. Pushing too hard into my toes, so this is what I mean. It's one of those exercises you want to try and just play around with. Watch yourself in the mirror and sort of just keep going backwards and forwards until it starts to feel right, until it starts to look right. Stretch those hip flexors out as much as possible. It's going to start to really switch them on, really murder them. And that's what you want. Because your hip flexors and your quads, your hip flexors, your glutes and your hamstrings are really what keeps everything in alignment in terms of hips. So if they're not engaged and they're not switching on properly, your hip flexors are taking over too much, then it's going to tilt your hips forward generally. Vice versa. If your hamstrings and your quads, hamstrings and glutes are taking over too much, then it's going to pull your hips backwards. And what tends to happen with me is, because I do a lot of work interstate, driving interstate quite a lot, once I'm in the truck, my hamstrings and my glutes are constantly at full extension because I'm sitting, and my hip flexors are pretty much turned off. So you sort of imagine, sitting in this position for, a long period of time, like a lot of people do at the office and whatnot. All this area switches off. So as soon as you stand up and go to move, all your hamstrings are just at full tension. They're just locked, constantly locked. And these hip flexors have then got to try and pull those hips back and sort of correct the alignment. And if they're not engaging all the time, they're not used to doing that, it's going to be very hard for them to keep all your hips and your spine and everything in alignment because they're not used to it. This is just my theory. I mean, this is just the information that I've picked up from other people. And sort of just what I'm feeling. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that'll sort of agree and disagree. But, I sort of go, well, I do what works. If it doesn't work, I don't do it. If I do work, I tell other people, Obviously, it's not the only way to fix this thing, but given the fact that I've got 3 bulging discs, 2 of which are herniated, this allows me to train legs virtually pain-free, and I still wake up the next day and they're sore. Like I said, I'm going to pass this information on because if I can help someone else, then, I can help someone else. So we'll do a couple of sets of these. I'll try and get a few different angles, give you guys a bit of an idea, go from there. This one here is the ultimate hip flex killer. Basically, it's the leg curl, they call it, the hamstring leg curl. We just change it up a little bit. This is one that you can try and will absolutely blow your mind. When you try it this way, you'll see exactly what I mean by murdering your hip flexors. So we basically come over it like we would on a normal hamstring leg curl. Set the weight pretty light. Get in the same position as you would for a normal hamstring curl. The difference is when we lift up, you dig your knees into the pads and you bring your hips, or the front of your hips, off the pad. So a normal hamstring curl would be like this, keeping your quads on the pad, everything else, basically flat on the pads, right? That's great if you want to work hamstrings. But what we're trying to do is absolutely destroy hip flexors and get a massive load in the hamstring area and the glute area. So what we do is we just tilt up like this. We bring the feet in a bit closer together, push the knees out a bit, and you want to have a good gap. I don't know how well you can see this on the camera, but it's a good gap in here. Get a good couple of hands in there, and we just pull back, just like you would on a hamstring curl, but you're keeping your hips elevated up off the pad. What this does is it makes your hip flexors take all the load as you're coming back down with the weight, and they have to strain, they have to work, because they have to keep your hips off the pad. If you let go, they'll just simply fall down like that and you'll hit the pad. Whereas if you're keeping them elevated, they have to work, they have to strain. What this is also doing is making your glutes and hamstrings work overtime. And that is how we do this exercise. You do 2 or 3 reps of this, trust me, you'll be feeling it tomorrow. Whew. Jesus. Oh.